Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Narendra Kumar, who is one of India's leading designers in menswear. Currently creative director at Amazon India, he recently launched an athleisure sportswear line, Alsace X Nari, made entirely from recycled PET bottles. His store in Mumbai was named one of the top 50 stores in the world by Esquire magazine in 2013 in the line of Tom Ford, Prada, Gucci and many others. He's also been named the Designer of the Year in 2013-2014 by GQ magazine. He has styled many big names like Amitabh Bachchan, Amir Khan, Shah Rukh Khan, to name a few. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a thunderous round of applause for Narendra Kumar.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Hi and good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock. And before we start, do we all have a right hand? You have a right hand, right? Do you think you could raise your right hand? Every one of you in the place? Everybody who has a right hand? Can you move it to the right? And then to the left? And then to the right again? Thank you. Happy to be here with you. This is what Paula told me to do. To get you to have some energy, you guys. I'm really happy to be able to talk to all of you and talk to people from a slightly different discipline from what I do, mostly. But I just finished telling people that I make films, I write my own scripts, I do teach, I do consulting, I am a photographer, I do all of that, and besides that, I also do a bit of tailoring. But let me start with what I talk to when I talk to people, students in colleges. The first thing I tell them is, and when I get to a convocation, design convocation, the first thing I tell students is, not all of you are going to be successful. And the fact is, India has had 30 years of NIFT, right? And there are only about 10 names or 15 names that people can talk about in the 30 years. But, let me qualify that by saying every one of you has an equal chance at being successful. It's not limited to the few, but it's limited to the few who go beyond their careers and jobs to define who they are. Okay. Now to my presentation is what I would like to talk to you about is who are we as a people? Who are we as a people? Anybody? Who are we as a people? How would one define oneself? Anybody? Yeah? And what would you be made up of, basically? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Saurabh Javeri.
Hi.
19 years back, I was a diamond broker, and it's just 1 year. I've just turned into a jewelry designer. Finally, I was being nominated as a finalist in the Artisan Award.
Right.
So the designs and concept what I actually go through is I read a lot of books now. I get inspiration from Insta. I follow a lot of fashion, architecture, photography, everything. So my journey for this one full year was like a lot of information coming from all the four corners. So I thank all of you. And the things what I actually think about is designing is just not diamonds and gold, as what Paula said. It's a lot of emotions, a lot of understanding for what a person would actually buy. It's a lot of additional things, a lot of integrity to it. While designing, we think a lot, and while putting it on the pencil with paper, it's not that easy. So yeah, that's what.
Right. So here's my thing. When we define ourselves, we are nothing but our experiences put together from the moment you were born till the moment you are here today. All of everything is a sum of all the experiences that you have in your life? And, from there, how do we look at design? When we look at what's happening around all of us today, most of the day that we are awake, we are at work. A large part of everything that we do is defined by the work we do, or the time that we spend doing the work we do. It might not just be on the desk, but you might be thinking about it even when you go home. So almost 60% to 70% of your waking day is occupied by work. And therefore, I would like to define how we think from the aspect, how do we design from the aspect of what occupies a large part of our lives. Pre-millennials, and Paula did speak about millennials and the Gen Z, but I want to take you back to the pre-millennials. Millennials were, my parents told me, beta, you should become doctor or engineer, or do something in the bank, do marketing, or that's it. There were 5 careers for boys, for men, for people at that point. Yeah? So our careers then were defined by really, really limited choices. We had less to choose from, and occupation largely came from these kind of jobs. So these were the careers that defined the pre-millennials. And there's a definition of all of them. Here is what the millennial career looks like. The first round was all bankers, accountants, engineers, doctors. What are the millennial careers looking like? Chefs. Today, your parents say, wow, you're going to be a chef, beta, fantastic. Can I send you to Cordon Bleu in Paris? 25 years ago, if I said that, my father would have given me a kick and said, get out of the house. Today, that has changed, Designers, myself, when I started my career selling photocopies, 10 paisa a copy at Narendra Point, in the offices, in all those buildings, Bajaj, Bhavan, and all of those kind of stuff. And my parents felt bad for me and said, I think you should get a better job. And they got me a better job selling glass bottles. The next thing I did was sell glass bottles with milk bottles and Coca-Cola bottles and medicine bottles. I did that for 6 years. And then one day I saw NIFT opening up. It's cool. And I'm trying to connect this all to the design process, okay? So NIFT opening up, and they wanted 1 year's, either a first class graduation or 60% to a standard, or 1 year's experience. For me, having failed in my 12th standard and having got into a graduation with 43% in chemistry after copying, I still managed 43%, but 6 years into my job, I saw NIFT opening up, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to take up this job. The day I heard they wanted 1 year's experience, I quit my job. I was a marketing manager at that time, selling glass bottles. And marketing manager at that time was traveling first class and by train, but not by air, but train, at least. So, the thing is, I quit my job, and my parents told me, my parents never spoke to me for some time. And then my friends told me, kya tum darzi banega? Are you going to become a tailor? What kind of job is that for people? But today, we celebrate the idea of being a designer. Parents are proud if they say, my child is going to be a designer. We plan for our kids to be designers even before they're born. Yeah? That's how things have changed. Fitness trainer. Whoever thought of fitness trainer being a career? But there are people who do that. It's a career. Dog walkers. How different is it from what it was even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the careers. And now to Gen Z. Sorry, I've used the same picture you have used. Okay. Gen Z, what are we talking about? You know, post-millennial careers. And where are we going? We're going back to our roots. Going back to our roots, as in Gen Z, our generation of kids who are talking about how the hell am I going to save this world? And what can I do to save this world? So design thinking has also moved with time in the same way. In the 70s, in the 80s, it was all driven by an idealism of what I said earlier was creating shareholder value. That you work towards enriching a few people in a way that, you know, you struggle, at the end you say, I got gratuity. The owner or the shareholder got a villa. Yeah, that was the difference in the 70s and the 80s. Coming to the millennials, what happened was people got tired of this working for everybody and saying, I want to work for myself. I want some kind of self-fulfillment and I want to help someone else. And what we're doing today and the Gen Z today is doing is coming back into a space that's saying, I don't want to help myself. I want to help others. I want to help others. I want to shape other people's lives. I want to be an influence that will affect other people's lives. Design process has also gone through the same journey. From where we created great stones and monuments because they look beautiful, to creating something that is to creating something that had purpose for you as a designer in the 90s kind of stuff, to today creating something that has purpose for everybody else. The design process has moved from being egoistical to being self-conscious to today being something that gives back to people in society. This is what design and Gen Z, what design means to the next generation. And so, we started in the farm many millions of years ago, or no, thousands of years ago, when we started 150,000 years ago. We started at the farm. Today, we are going back to the farm. Because it's the farm that is going to save us and this environment and make a difference. It's not a question of just talking about a career. It is talking about a mindset. And that is what design is about. Design is about a mindset and how that mindset transforms ideas into actuality. How do you tell a story, and like Paula and Abhay and Ash spoke about the next generation, how do you tell a story with a consciousness? Something that has roots that you can talk about without the aid of a PPT. That is what design means today. So, what we're going to talk about is, that was how people think. But there are a lot of things that affected us to where we are today and how we think about design today. There was a chain of events, stuff that in modern history has led to what we look at contemporary design. The first, I spoke about the 80s and the 90s, the dot-com boom. What it did was, it brought interest into the internet space. It brought interest into connectivity. It connected people in ways that was never done before. But most of what happened in the early part of the dot-com was digital first companies doing lots of things that were new and were focused on product. Were focused only on product. What was, I want to sell this company, I want to sell this product, I want to do that kind of stuff. What happened at the end, when the bubble burst, it left a lot of people broke and a lot of people jobless. But what it had done was create and generate the interest in what was going to shape our world in the next few years. And what that did was it grew interest that we are connected, we can be connected, but how can we be connected in better ways, where we offer service, where we offer product, where we offer customer satisfaction, where we offer engagement, right? So those were the companies of the first round that blew up, did not see the vision, or were not ready to understand the entire process. Is the second round, the bubble that came up the second time, was where people realized from the first part of what happened, we had to create platforms that were integrated into our daily lives. And the idea was not just about selling product, but it was also about communicating, meeting friends, talking to people, learning new things, connecting on business, and just chatting. Right? So this really was the moment, a defining moment, when ideas became global and local at the same time. So every idea anywhere in the world was instantly on your Instagram or on your Facebook or on anything else. So the world became much more connected. People started thinking of ideas that worked in manner that had universal connectivity. And then another momentous event that took place was, the last 5-7 years, everybody's been talking about the environment and the climate. And what really brought focus to the environment? One single person. Him. He brought focus to what can happen to our world by single-handedly pulling America out of the Paris Agreement. It's the momentous time in our history, because from there we saw what we see today is so many things that he created. The movements that define our culture today, that was the moment where all of these started. The Me Too picked up steam because of how he treated women, how he spoke about them, what he did about them, kind of stuff. All of this is related to the idea of how the world is changing to a vision that is united both between men and women. A kind of uni-vision is being built up, and all of this has led to, the day he was inaugurated, there were the Women's March, Madonna sang, everybody sang, women stood out in defiance to him. And that's where Me Too really got the courage and the guts to come out in public. That is one of the single largest movements that is redefining how we live, how we work, how we interact with other women across every platform that we interact with them. It also led to the idea of LGBTQ becoming a big space, and that idea itself All of this stuff earlier defined led to something. This is another idea that it led to was diversity, inclusivity, being part of mainstream, not looking down, being inclusive. And you know, some of the biggest television shows today, Netflix, driven by the idea of diversity, inclusivity, like the Drag Race, the RuPaul, the other one, Pose. Have you seen Pose? Anybody seen Pose? Pose? No? You have. You acting in it? Yeah, okay. You should be. but this is what is defining the world, you know? And this is where today suddenly, you know, in one of the slides that Paula showed, we went from a diamond, clear diamond crystal to a purple covered stone. That is how far we have moved in life. That color has become such an important aspect of no longer defines us. I mean, just because I wore pink, it doesn't make me any different person that I am. Or just because somebody wears black, it doesn't make them the person they are. We all view the world through one single lens. And the idea is, I don't want to take you through the direct process of designing, but I want you at the end of this to understand what are the elements that cause change. What are the elements that define change, and how can you be ahead of the times by understanding this change? What are the things that define the choices that we make, or what we are going to be able to make in the next few years? That is vision. Vision is just from understanding, having your ears on the floor and your head on your shoulder. It is understanding stories about how we are changing, because those basic changes lead to design sensibility changes. And if the world is thinking about it, and if we are all going to be part of this world and going to be designing for the world, you better be prepared for it. One of the biggest things that happened, I'm sure all of you know this lady. Do you know her? How many people know her? That's fantastic. I mean, a girl at 16, single-minded determination to make a difference to the world, not with a million people behind her, but by herself. What is the story this says? That every one of us can make a difference to this world. You don't need 50 people behind you. You don't need even a second person behind you. You need yourself to stand up. And look at what she's created. She drives leaders insane with being direct. But it has also led to a lot of change when it comes to fashion and lifestyle choices. It has brought the world to be aware of how you use stuff, recycle stuff, sustainable stuff, all of that kind of stuff, you know. The thing is, it has awakened the consciousness amongst a younger generation that is going to demand a lot from everything that you are creating. Don't think, that we are designing today for the people of today. You are designing for the Gen Z that is going to come out there, who's already 21, who's going to start shopping for the stuff that you do. And they will ask you, how responsible are you to the work that you do? How do you treat the women that you work with? How do you give enough equity? How, like Abhay said, how much transparency you have in your organization, because it's no longer about an individual. Design is not going to be anything about one person's vision. It is going to be about the backstory. And the backstory is really one that is going to change, make or break any brand that comes up in the future. Veganism. An idea, a lot of us are vegetarians. But the West has discovered vegetarianism in another way. in that veganism. What has that led to? In fashion terms, it has led to no wearing leather,
Vegan leather.
not on your shoes, no, he's wearing PV. PV. So, no wearing leather, faux leather, but people are discovering new kinds of leather in fashion business. There's leather made out of mushrooms. So you don't have to give up on everything. And the idea is, how do you live through all your wants with alternatives that are sustainable? And sustainable, like Paula said earlier, is not limited to just recycled clothing or landfills or that kind of stuff. Sustainable is how much of an organization you build that is sustainable within itself, right? So it's important to understand how the dynamics of a working space is changing and how that affects design going ahead. Yeah? I tell myself, what is design going to be in the next 10 years? I don't know. Given AI, given machine learning, you might just have to say a word into a computer and suddenly you'll have a shoe. But I cannot tell. The only thing that you can do is keep your mind open to change, keep your mind open to what is happening in the world so that you can be one step ahead. So here, finally, look what the world looked in 30 years from a pre-millennial career to a millennial career to Gen Z. We're coming back a full circle, yeah? And for me, and I would do this on a personal level, is I would take it as, how did I see my design career? I started my design career looking at beautiful stuff from Azadin Alaya, Claude Montana, Thierry Mugler. They're the people who inspired me. But I realized I could be a greater, or if not greater, an equal designer if I had not just looked at what they did, but what were their influences when they grew up, what shaped their minds, what are the minds that created the stuff. There is so much more to learn by understanding the minds and what influenced those minds, and then building your own story. This is what the brands of tomorrow are going to be. You cannot be a brand that imitates another brand. You need to have a brand that understands the process and the thinking process of those brands and those great people to create stories which are your own roots and your own brands. I'll finish by saying, as I tell my students at our schools, when they ask me what is the secret of success, it's 3 words. Number 1, passion to the point of obsession that it doesn't allow you to sleep, eat, drink, or do anything. It needs to get you out of bed and not allow you to sleep. Number 2 is conviction. Conviction of who you are as a person, which colors your passion. Whoever you are as a person, your conviction colors the passion that you have, gives it roots, gives it direction, gives it a thought, gives it deep, deep foundation. You cannot just be a designer who just gets into school and draws, and that's why I said there are only 10 people in this country who you know of who have come out of Nifty out of 30,000 students. And number 3, and the most important of all 3 of them, evolution. You need to be relevant to the time that you live in. You cannot live in the past. You cannot live in the future. You need to live in the now. And how are you creating the now with a vision for the future? Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
Questions?
Do you have any questions for Narendra?
Oh, they did the dance for me. Thank you very much. Thank you. You were very kind to do the dance.
Narendra, thank you. I mean, you made my day. I think that, I'm completely inspired by, what he said and what the previous speaker said. But really, what really I love when he said, design is a mindset. I've been saying that for many years, to you, and I'm happy when I have other inspiring people saying, sharing the same vision. Really, it's not just designing on a piece of paper or making a piece of jewelry, but really having a broad perspective. Those are like notes that really struck my mind. Another thing is like not being egotistical when we draw, we create something, but servicing society, I think that it's really what design should be. And design is not just designing one piece, one rendering, but really creating something. Design is also creating a company with a vision and really having a strong message. And then, design a product is part of it. So I think that is part of, modernity, right? And this is very enriching. Do you want to add anything?
I just wanted to add, when you look at design, how large things, cultural shifts, events shape design. In the 90s, it was all about minimalism. Minimalism is what? Straight lines, clean lines, everything, sharp, clean lines, bereft of any beauty or anything on it, right? But what happened in 2001 after 9/11? Right? The world became inclusive. We wanted to be close to people we loved because we did not know what was going to happen to us. How did that transform into design? So there are two architects that define, one that shows the minimalism of the 90s, and the one who reshaped that minimalism into a modern structure which is more inclusive from the cold of minimalism. One was Tadao Ando, a Japanese architect, and the other is Zaha Hadid. And if you see Zaha Hadid's work, it's sharp, square lines, but they're all curved around the edges. And that is a transformation of feeling of being cold to being someone who wants to be enveloped in a round space. Simple design movement, that simple event that will create such a large tectonic shift in what architecture design was about. So if you see some of our structures, some of the most modern, beautiful structures today are done by her and her team. She's no longer. She was one of the only first woman Pritzker Award winner for architecture. And if you see the movement of work from the 90s to her, you will understand how events can shape design. Thank you.
Thank you, Narendra. Now, one last thing, and then I want to say something about round tables. We set some time to have round tables with some of the speakers, but you have to sign up, and these people are not available all the time, as you know. It's an exclusive opportunity for you. Only 10 people per table. Some of them will be leaving shortly, like Narendra Kumar. We told you to sign up with Laila. If you wanted to sit down and have one-on-one conversation, 10 people, and we will schedule this, but you have to do it now. If not, you're going to miss the opportunity. One last thing, and maybe then we can actually take a break. We can go to lunch sooner if you want. We started this morning, and we are at the jewelry show, and this is a trend forecasting event for the jewelry sector. We didn't touch base on jewelry yet, have you noticed? But it's that was the objective. The objective was to bring a different perspective and culture and show how many elements and factors are influencing our environment and therefore the way our lifestyle and ultimately also the jewelry sector. The day will conclude with me doing a presentation on the jewelry sector and about what is the future of diamonds. Diamonds as an example of how also I'm going to wrap up showing out all the values that we've been discussing, all the factors we've been discussing are already affecting our business going from you know, white diamonds to colored diamonds, natural diamonds to lab-grown diamonds. The beers, Steven Lucier, like 3 weeks ago, was in Italy. He said that the next target for the beers is creating jewelry for men. Because, you know, it's the next target, honestly, it's very important. Women have been buying their own jewelry for like decades already, not maybe in all parts of the world, but we, since women started working and they are empowered, we are buying our own jewelry. So yes, we have been passed on our jewelry from grandmothers and mothers, but we have been buying jewelry for like a few decades now. So jewelry have to be thought, maybe not necessarily in India, or maybe also in India, but I can tell you that in other parts of the world, at least since the 90s, women are buying their own jewelry. And that's why designers are being, you know, mixing and matching and creating jewelry without, you know, women buy their own jewelry without questioning and getting permission. And that's why the design also has evolved, because of course when you buy for yourself, you're more confident and you know exactly what you want. So I don't know if you have any questions. You're shy. Don't ask questions when we finish the session, because usually that's what happens. I advise you to take the opportunity to get it around the table. If not, I shall see you after lunch. Thank you for joining, and I hope you don't get bored. I hope. I'm not. I'm enjoying it. Thank you. Ciao.